Really useful and really like, yeah.
Could you bear to YouTube? Now she's passing out kitchen.
Hey, thank you. Sorry,
Hi.
Hi.
Yeah.
Hey, Lisa, how you doing?
Not so great. I'm hanging tough.
You feeling better?
Thank you.
And the same stack.
So beautiful friends, let's regather the faithful remedies.
I want to invite everyone sitting around, cell phones to be put to the side, bring our focus to the room.
Now you're really asking.
You'll sit in the room. There it is. Sitting in. So you should call out again to our gathering leaders for getting us going for this shop races. We've got here our leaders for last night, which is our shop leaders having traded Yosef and Jason in the off season for each other. Good trade.
And the rabbis we need later.
So, we wanted to start by bringing in some of the teachers from last night, and again, we're framing that before, not so much to revisit, oh, here's what I experienced, but, if I'm bringing this back home, what I want to teach my kahal from what I learned in my leadership. So think of how you would phrase that. Here's what I want to teach from what I learned last night. We'll begin with the Maori folks. And that means you're not necessarily going to go back and take us back through each moment. It means you're going to reach for what you want to pay forward by virtue of that. So any of you can begin, and we'll get a few more teams to choose.
So for me, one thing was, Yosef and I spent a lot of time talking about how not to make introductions to everything we did. And then I dove right into a fairly long introduction on Yud Hey Vav Hey. And there were other ways to experiment and try to put that out there, mostly through hand and visualization and just movement and expressing myself as opposed to explaining it. And that would have been another way to put it out there. Sure. So if I'm
It's probably a standing move.
yeah, that's where I was headed. So we had just come through Barfu, and Yud Hey Vav Hey Yud Hey Vav Hey Yud Hey Vav Hey Yud Hey Vav Hey
Uniting all the world.
Yud Hey Vav
Community healing from there. How
to
does that
the
fold into? The question is always not ultimately what is the thing itself, but how does it fold into, how does it tuck into under the coverlet for what comes next?
So the lyric of the chant starts Yud Hey Vav Hey. And so we would have had a chord from Michelle and Yosef would have started with the words. Right?
Take us there for just 2 seconds.
Okay. So we're not gonna have a chord, but I'll bring you right in. So Yud Hey Vav Hey Yud Hey Vav Yud Hey Vav Hey Adonai Adonai
Adonai,
Uniting all the world.
Uniting all the world.
Yud Hey Vav Hey, Yud Hey Vav Hey. Adonai,
It's a code word for Shekhinah, so she's the energy that's rising. Yud Hey Vav Hey, this is the yin yang, the unification of above and below, beyond and within. Yud Hey Vav Hey in this model is a descending energy. Adonai, Adonai, Shekhinah rising. You, as you are singing, you can model Yud Hey Vav Hey Adonai.
Yud Hey
You're playing the drum.
Yud Hey Vav Hey, Adonai, Adonai.
Playing the Shekinah and the divine energy from above and below.
Yud Hey Vav Hey, Yud Hey Vav Hey, Adonai, Adonai.
Bringing the energy up and combining together.
Yud Hey Vav Hey, Yud Hey Vav Hey, Adonai, Adonai.
Thank you, beautiful.
Do it one more time, keep it going, and let all the gestures go. Let all the gestures go, and you'll see. You'll see. So let all the gestures go and do it internally without making a motion. But do everything you just did within.
Yud Hey Vav Hey, Yud Hey Vav Hey, Adonai, Adonai.
That's one possible way of doing it.
There's always many ways. We have to put in a gift that you gave us to let us experiment with that way. What changed for you?
Just now. I think be embodying was helpful, and also reaching out to sort of connect with the sort of energy of the movement as well as the voice. That's a different way of doing it than checking through the drum.
For me,
I love the idea of understanding that the Adonai energy is rising, so that there's like making a cocoon, the energy, and then bringing it back up.
for me, it gave it more context. So that there was, I thought, I have a meaning in my head and a covenant in my head, and then just a little, the body movements, and then a little bit more of the digging deeper into it gave it more context, made it more present for me.
The piece at the end was the answer to the, okay, there they go again with the stuff, never in my synagogue. So I intentionally wanted us to do that so we don't keep ourselves in a state clause. Right? You at the end, you demonstrated after leading 2,000 people at Central Synagogue downtown. The answer to how you do that is exactly what you said. So you connect yourself, and through your words and the tone and the variations and the unnoticed and yet felt experience of the energy, there's a difference there. So I want us to get invited into it, but not give ourselves an out because of the context that we're in. You translate it into your context, and the principles remain the same. Self-evident and always true.
By embodying the teaching as opposed to explaining it.
The explanation is deeper.
Right, the explanation actually began to live inside of me, titrated by very few words, but embodied in the way that you offered it. I didn't need to know that there's a picture in the back of my siddur, and that's where I remember the picture. I don't know if it's also in my portfolio, and I think, oh, I love my folio in my room.
Well, it embodies what I heard, as part of the bar today. This idea of I was heading from my head, and this moved it into my heart, and that made it connect without words from a very spiritual and breath place, and that's more powerful than trying to explain it. Just get it.
We were always asking which part of us are we invoking to show up. We are all well trained by our culture to create spaces in which the head shows up. And we create spaces in which emotions show up. We are very good at creating spaces in which ego shows up. But we're not very good at creating spaces in which the shaman shows up. The shaman is shy. He wants to be invited to show up.
What was the piece last night when people were, wasn't it last night that someone, the job description, right, for the rabbi,
Yes.
Jason brought it, right, the capacity to create.
Say
Well,
yes.
let's not even say create, to be able to bring us to witness the sacredness that is in this space.
Thank you for doing this.
How about for you, Michelle, from last night? And not what happened, but what you would teach moving forward.
Especially perhaps in light of this morning as well. Just the learnings combined.
Well, it kind of probably overlaps more with this morning. I felt I wanted my neshama wanted more time with some of the music, the chants, and I didn't feel like I had enough time to experience them fully, and I would take home doing less during the chakra, the early chakra, and doing a couple of those much longer and much more fully. Because then I got preoccupied with, okay, what's next? And then it's hard for me to stay embodied in the prayer. And I was really conscious of that. And for me.
You're a great musician that way. I mean, you can hold space in the guitar. You can daven with the guitar.
Mm-hmm.
And I've already seen you in the last few weeks move from song leader to start to edging towards davening leader with guitar.
Mm-hmm.
Just like both Mitch and Yosef, I feel you came in with, percussionists have arrived, right? You got 43 drums and like the Japanese sumo guys, it was all truck backed up and everything got emptied out. And now you're keeping rhythm within as well, and I feel your percussion is more an extension of that. Mm-hmm. Not that you won't let it rip in a concert or that kind of thing, it's different context. Right. How to be with this. So the same way, Michelle, one of the big questions that arises, Marcia and I were talking about this, is out of what does something come and where does it go? And especially when you add an instrument like a guitar that way, the song leading tradition, which is so revolutionized, davening, brought so many beautiful pieces into it. How do you string those precious jewels together? So it's not K-Tel's 22 great stuff and it gets just a little cut and then we go to the next one. So I think the part of the response to what you're saying, we want to try this too, is how do you begin that piece before the strum, or how do you even give yourself some time, or like you did last night, you didn't start everything in time. It wasn't chick, 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 it didn't kick off in the same rhythm and then it ended. I've seen you experimenting last night and today with starting a little bit slower, and then the resolution at the end
Oh,
with the way you play the chords or not, or getting the percussion to come out so we all hear each other. But your goal is ultimately for us to be more deeply in connection with each other and that divine swirl. Right? So where does the instrumentation support that? Where does it obscure it? Become part of the questions that we put into it.
Hope that you'll let us play with you a little bit on that, you know.
sure, thank you. I think.
She has invited us in. Just something else from last night, because it's a natural segue to this morning as well. We talked a little bit about everybody had that, well, if I had more time, or if this was, and you kind of say, okay, that's all nice, but you didn't.
If
So-
only that's good.
Right, so we for if only is we understand that. If only the tree hadn't fallen, during the davening, Shema would have been heard, but the tree fell. So what's our relationship to that moment? We're having 7 minutes like Michelle had last night to be brought into a service that she was not originally, planned in for. So where do you position yourself? How do you get the sight lines? And when it's not all there, how do you move in or adjust the mics? And just sort of start to get to ourselves saying, yes, we know the ideal is there, but how you deal with what happens and arises is so powerful. Even maybe more so than your most perfect moment. Because it's real, and people can tell that when you're in that piece. So that's just like a general piece I wanted to bring forward from our discussion last night. And there's a piece about, I'm so glad you brought the Why Men Pray, book by Jewish Lights. It's so sweet to see that come forth. And I think we're still walking that edge here of when does Kaddish become Yisker? So I think the moment in a way you brought us in today, Jason, was it's Shachrit, it's the weekday, it's the Kaddish moment. The piece that was a bit of on the edge from the instinct to bring a reading. I mean, Gabe isn't a hey, sometimes just that little reading or the few words before. We're not saying, just stand up every time, look, Kaddish it's on 43, and that's all you should be saying there. But when we get words like tragedy, calamity, I wasn't quite sure, is this the 9/11 Kaddish? Is like, I'm thinking of all the huge losses recently, like I'm gone into Yisker. Okay, that moment, right? And I'm being invited to unearth whether, I wasn't saying Kaddish at that moment, but there was sure a lot that was coming up for me in relationship to those words. So you activate the room. There may be a purpose for it, but if there's not something specific going on,
Why take us there? Yeah. There is a way in which Kaddish has grown into this enormous ceremony. The people who are in mourning, please stand and say the names. The people who are in Shoshim, and the people who are in the year of mourning, and then the people's custom it is to say Kaddish for all of those who perished with no one to say Kaddish for them. And as somebody who spent the whole last year in Kaddish, I must say I found those kinds of experiences after a while to be really burdened. I longed for the Shliach Tzibor who at the end of the service would say Kaddish Yatom to her, so that I could rise to say Kaddish. I couldn't bear every time out over the whole of the year the Yisker experience. So I agree. I urge us. Sometimes there'll be congregational contexts in which it is more than appropriate to do that, or even more than appropriate. And had there been in the community a tragedy that has to be named and acknowledged, but particularly when there is a group that is gathering regularly, as we do here. If we were to spend 10 minutes on a Yisker-esque Kaddish each time out, you see, it's what they call terminating work, right? There's a burden, a hardship, it actually adds a hardship. But think about ways to craft the Kaddish moment so that it also needs to gravitas. It's not as if you say one is Kaddish and the next thing you hear is Ein Kelahego. Like, whoa, how did I get here? Say what? But we always think about where something came from, where it's going, and how we give it the right space.
One of the reasons that we've fallen into the habit of making it a thing is that many people come to what are something called the Kaddish College. They're learning to Daf and they're learning to be part of the community because of the come and say, well, it's Kaddish. And for me, having that at the end, where someone tells a story about how the people would just sit in the back, wait for the end of the service, just they're only there and like it was a cruel trick of the rabbis to put the Kaddish on at the end, just for people to be there earlier. But we actually have another opportunity on Friday, certainly in Kabbalah Shabbat, to say Kaddish before Baruch. So in my community, and I think a lot of our communities where there are really significant losses that need to and want to be acknowledged, it made more sense to me to experiment with using that moment in the middle of the service to open up the heart, open up the grief, to welcome those tears, and give people the kind of cry from Mara or be held in community. So it's not like, oh, I know this is the last thing before we go to our coats and our shoes. So if there is that need, there are other opportunities over there. No, and then at the end, also for people who may have come late, do a Kaddish page 43.
And they shut down before Baruch Shabbat.
So, so again, the point made, and this isn't debating the efficacy or not, I don't want anyone to leave here going, I'm never going to say, please show the names again. That's not the message of this. It's you'll feel into it. The reason why Friday night that more is were brought in after L'Chadodi, or welcomed in Makomi and Chemet then, so that they didn't have to whoop it up. It was enough to show up on Shabbos without getting into the sing-song. So you'll feel your way into it.
Thank you for allowing us to express that sensitivity again for all of you. You'll feel through the right way. Every moment is different, every environment is different there. But you'll have a greater spectrum of choices available to you.
Okay, so let's segue to you for a moment. We are going to get a moment up on the feet. But what would you teach for? What would you bring home and say, this I learned?
For me, it was just what I said in my academic. I felt a great sense of, I understand the big picture here, and I'm kind of keeping it in the circle of the big picture. But at the moment of as it evolved, the bicycle wheel kept bumping into me. And that was hard. I would have liked to have had more attention to detail in the planning, my own attention to detail, and not feel those bicycle bumps. So what I said was spiritual practice takes, it's not just magic, it's attention to detail. And there were some details that I didn't in the moment or in preparation, I didn't attend to. That's the teaching. So the teaching is you can have a beautiful vision, and it's great to have a beautiful vision, but it's also good to get all the things.
I'm so curious that, because I don't know about you, but most of the details that show up, you can't really plan for.
Right. Well, that was the thing. So I'm interested in the practice that Grace for us about dealing with bugs. Again, because this is the idea. We were talking about last night, and one of the things that Michelle said, first of all, if I had more than 7 minutes, okay, so this is the day you don't. This is the day you only have 7 minutes. How do you respond?
This is the highway that has potholes, because that's what happens.
So the good thing about bumps I have to say a good thing about it was, it didn't make me feel like the whole circle would be broken. And I said, well, there's a little bug here, we'll figure it out. You know, it was just in the beauty of it. But I felt like the idea, the energy I was trying to create, I didn't feel like it got broken up. I just felt like, I wish I they destroyed the whole energy. I was just a perfectionist.
See, maybe there's a comment or two from your pepper, what they learned, what they would bring home to teach their dominant core from the last night this morning.
Call on your friend.
Jason invited me to participate in this morning's service last night to help with the tour service. And thank you for giving us notice, and thank you for graciously walking through the service. I just emailed everybody something that I put together at the end of the last session, which was the Laner's Bill of Rights and Responsibilities. I think that in a pickup service like this, with an unfamiliar scroll, an unfamiliar reading table, an unfamiliar cast of characters, you really need to run. There's nothing that replaces running the service with the tour service through in real time. There's a lot of choreography, there are a lot of implements that come. And unless you run it, you don't realize that the tours roll to the wrong place. This table has wheels and it rolls around. The yacht you can hit on the side. Yeah, I found that out later. There is no, where is the card with the barcode? So for those of us, so it feels like the creativity of the service is sort of, sometimes we feel the tour service is a little plug and play part, okay, and it's like tour service. But tour service itself can be a moment of great dignity, or it can be a moment when something goes wrong. And you cannot talk through the tour service in a new space. You actually have to do it. And we worked last night, the laners came in, we opened the tour scroll. Each tour scroll is different. When you said, oh, wait a second, these letters are a little bit not used to, what is this word? And if you open the scroll, take a picture and practice out of that scroll, you don't any longer, you don't have that impact. So what I've learned is, if I'm doing a tour service in a new space, bring everyone together, including the leader, and say, what is your vision? Are you going to be pausing us here to do a group aliyah? And if so, we have space for everybody to stand. Who is going to be holding up the card, et cetera, et cetera. So that is something, a teaching that I take with me.
Yeah. I was kind of.
I
was saying, thank you for that. One of the teachings I would take back as a leader and maybe try to do in my kahal is that I noticed that when the transitions, when there was a stop, it stopped the energy. And our lovely teachers here and crafters was able, by keeping the last word of the chant going, by keeping a melody going, was able to hold that energy. So even if the service leaders at times, not always, but at times when there was a break, and that's what I love leading from this chair, that even if I'm not a service leader, and there can be other people in the congregation that begin to understand this is how we hold the holy space. So that's what I would take back from this.
I'm going to say something kind of different than that. In that, what I'm learning and continuing to learn for me, is that the prayer doesn't end when the prayer ends. There's a vibration in the space that keeps going. And when I can be tuned into that, when I can hold that, everyone in the room, that those transitions can happen more fluidly. And this is a personal preference. I like space in a service. I like silence. It allows me to really be in the experience in a much deeper way. That's just me and my person. I don't think everybody feels that way, but I think that honoring those, it's like Marie, it's the space between. It's like that is where the growth is. That's where we enter. You were saying, like in Shema, how do we make space for that? It's not in the doing, it's in the not doing. Allowing. So I'm just in a continual exploration of how do you do that? How do you honor that flow? And how do you tune in to listen to actually what that flow is based on the elements that you have? It's going to be different based on the elements.
What I hear and what I'm so always very fascinated by is how to create what I call earned silence. Which is the silence of presence. It's not that something just happened to stop, like somebody pulled the emergency brake or forgot what was coming.
Yeah.
But a silence that is earned, like the silence that's inside a great bell. If you've ever heard a great church bell, when it rings, there's an audible sound whose vibrations continue long after you cease to be able to hear the ring of the bell. And inside the bell, if you've ever really done the belfry, the vibration is so enormous after you can no longer hear the actual sound of the bell. Like singing or a singing bowl. The vibration is enormous. We can create a deep well of silence into which the neshama can sink. That silence is actively created by what came before it.
But I think your wisdom actually is weaving. I don't know if you felt you were presenting two aspects in what you said, but I felt you actually wove what Pauline meant. She's even doing the Tamari hand gesture things about the weaving together. Exactly. That aspect, what she's saying, that sometimes that response in the call is the vestige of the unresolved energy or vibration, as opposed to, my gosh, I can't bear the silence, quick, let's, extend another hallelujah or something like that. So it's the attempt to actually come to a seated place out of which then the silence could arise. Right? And the artistry that you all demonstrated is you're starting to do that.
I felt it very strong. Yeah. Very strong. I could have sat on that before we did the essential one. Is that what you're saying? Yeah. Well, that whole actually the essential one sealed it well, but like when we transition into that place is very still. How do you take that energy and bring it into the Torah, which has such a different kind of choreography? And I find this actually in many services that the energy dissipates there. Not always, but at times it changes. But how do you bring that into it? Not like you're in a separate thing, but you built all of this and you tuck it in. Yeah, and then carry it, and even have moments of it within the service.
I think you said something that really resonated with me, and that's this combination of thinking of the Shema as shy and the space as being that place where the Shema can come in, so many people think of space as the absence of stuff as opposed to the presence of the space. And if the visual of that is so powerful for me, and that's something I can hold, you know, it's that the power of that space being activated and intentional instead of just to see into something and bring to something else. You know, it's kind of, it's not a comma, it's a fermata. It's, you know, it's a big thing you're holding. It's beautiful.
First thing I want to say is, Jason, when we trying to minimize exclamations or the verbal transitions, also just, I make this mistake all the time, trying to say something quick related to the prayer, and then realizing afterwards, I didn't think that out. I think it's an interesting moment when you said coming back in on the last two blessings of the Shachar. There's a paragraph at the end of the Shachar, which is a blessing. So when you said the last two, I didn't know which two you were talking about. So, you know, if one can be conscious of that, you know, for the words, say the blessing you want people to come in on, because it is a little unclear where that is. But I wanted to respond. I as a congregant, as a governor here, I felt a little bit hypocritical, and I wanted to put this out, sort of on that, of the relation between the leaders and the crowd, because Michelle, when you led, when you were leading a time, right, you wanted to start it with the guitar, and I personally was not even a couple of people with me, but sort of shushed so that you could start. But then at the end, when you finished, I started. It's sort of like that. That there was another one rendition of chorus, kind of spontaneous, and I was like, because I shushed a sort of a spontaneous urge of another fellow governor, and then I did it myself. So I didn't know. So I don't know if you can just take it. I can examine myself saying, well, this shouldn't be in the end. And the end belongs to the congregation. I don't know, but you know, that was just, I felt for you, and I thought maybe I did. You know, I think it relates to that conversation about holding space or letting the congregation and the leaders dance together.
You really have, if you could think about the instinct, you trust the instinct, as opposed to the judgments that you have about how they act on the instinct. But the instinct that I heard is actually where you help you go. It's about how to begin a prayer, perhaps even before the guitar comes in, so that the prayer begins to have a shape and a life without it being a folk song. How to pray our way in. That isn't to say that we sometimes don't begin with the guitar before the words come in. That's another way in. You can let the guitar dominate and then come in with words. But another way, which was the instinct, and I heard your Neshama call out, was what would happen if the moment in which the runway for the prayer is not the picking up of the guitar, but was the prayer itself. Where the guitar could come in later, if at all. And what would happen if when the guitar dropped out, the prayer hadn't ended, and there was still a cadence or two before they helped us earn the silence. We actually thought that we might play a little bit with that with you all, if you gave us permission to do so.
Well, you should know I'm going to take this one on me, because this was one of the places of real problems. Because that wasn't how we tried to do this. We had a short, like, really long problem now that was going to be there. And that didn't happen in the moment, right, because the real life. So, reminded me that's always part of the real life.
That's the
I'm happy to do
that's
this
the
already.
only.
Yeah, that's the only.
I want to start with
Okay, I was gonna say, how many of you have enough if onlys in your life?
Me too.
Me too.
Actually, it's a different moment we wanted to work with. Okay, not that, which is different. Now, the thing you're illuminating, Andy, once at that particular moment, I think was a caring for the leader, because, you know, the kaha was, there was an absence, there might have been a bump, and we were filling in, and then we kind of just like went with it. But I think the people who noticed Michelle had something, it wasn't just no kaha, we're taking it. It was like, well, there's an offering here that they won't notice if we keep on doing our own thing. So I think there was a consciousness and a sensitivity rather than a power struggle in that moment in time. Just to name that. So what happened before Mikamoka? We had Shema, right? We declared Shema, and then I think there was some quiet. That's what we want to come back to.
Yeah.
We did.
And I like to do that.
We sang, we got the first paragraph right after Shema, and
Right.
we let how do it on their own.
The beautiful way the art of, you know, the new stuff appropriate to the time, we begin with songs and spoken word that really, you know, gave us a lot to aspire to. So let's come out of that. Let's, as Marsha was saying, let's explore the expansiveness of that silence and how Mikamoka, you know, how actually it's not, and now here's the Mikamoka song. Remember the deep template, right? We convene as a community. We tap into the creative force of the universe, love and connection, out of which unity is the product. That then will take us over the deepest sea, so that we might cross over and sing that song. So actually, Mikamoka is a song on the other side. So how do you cross over? In that sense, even in the silence of whatever you've done, and the result is, woo! You know, like Mikamoka is the response to that experience. You know, it's not so much the vocal, you know, getting across the room.
You'll want your Siduran, because we're going to re-enter some juicy parts of the tefillah. So you want to prepare your God, because it is, and all of your godly leaders in full activated position. Let's see where we will take this in. So there are two. If we work with this part, then no, I'd actually like to work from the Kedusha. If we can work it from the Kedusha through the Kamoka. I know that's a little bit of an expanded agenda, but the same issue showed up twice. And I think we can, if we work with it in both locations, then we'll reinforce those. So we are therefore.
What was that moment? Quickly give us the moment before.
Okay. Yeah. How did we bring us into Kadosh Kadosh? What was going on?
People were davening on their own. That was before.
Did you close your door to Gosh? How did that go?
No, we're still at Kadosh Kadosh, so I'm just trying to figure out, like, from the Chema, Illinois, you know what?
Yeah, well, she's saying we were doing on the day.
We were all sort of,
We're in our own time.
we were all davening in our own space. Okay, so in that case, we're at Barclay. Might as well. Hey, keep rolling it back, but. I mean, you're just rolling it back, so you can roll it back far enough to get it on the runway. You did a Kaddish, is that right? Okay, so we're, right, so. Let's do it. Take us in Kaddish. Barco, see what happens next. Giving us a little energy.
Yeah,
You haven't lost your voice, you have not lost your voice. Not yet.
Notice that the first time that the minutia happens, it's seated, and we don't elevate ourselves because we're not there yet. We haven't got time. We long to reach that angelic realm, but until we meet her, we're not quite there yet.
I'll shut up and say I we am over Shasita Yivaruchase The Malachim have such nachas. Think about it, how it has no role at all. The Malachim have such nachas. The nachas ruach, v'safar ruach, v'nigan dosha, kulam ke'echad, onim te'omrim, ve'yikra.
and the whirling beings and the sacred things of the chariot with a great rushing noise rise up to the angelic seraphim, to the burning beings, and they call out together in praise.
Oh, we love the Lamb. This is God, the awful sweet
The source of all blessings, they sing ungrateful name. You hold whatever champion of justice, you plant righteousness and so free. You bring healing and are beyond all praise. Zion Tair,
After saying how you're going to make this move from here to your love has lifted me higher, and how you will lift that up higher out of prayer as opposed to putting the doubting down and picking up the song. Let's see how that that you would intuitively introduce and say, I'm going to pick that up from the show. So she's not left having to complete that Fatima and get the guitar and start the next thing at the same time. So let's see how you intuitively do that.
May a new light shine, may a new light shine upon all of us, and may we all be worthy to become that light. Baruch atah Adonai, Yosef, Amen.
So can you just give yourself a note?
Well, I had given myself the note here so that I could go right in, so that I was still in the same key.
Okay, that's what happened last time. This is what's happening now. So this one.
Right now, because we're getting into Ahavarava. And somehow we want to embed a song that is unfamiliar into a new location where it has never lived before.
Oh, sure.
That's always good.
You're just on damage.
You're in this and then you're going to put out of this for a song that never lived here before. How can we do that? Your love is lifting me higher than I've ever been lifted before. Ahavarava, ahatam. Your love is lifting me higher than I've ever lifted before. Thank you, love.
So, just give yourself a strum.
Before you go into it.
But I want to get this noted for the show. For anyone playing an instrument, you can give yourself the one strum as opposed to begin the piece with it. So if you need the key, give yourself that time. We may or may not be in that key, but you can play if it's a C chord or whatever starts with that.
Here, is that all right?
Oh, even better.
I know, because I didn't want to.
Not everybody has your skill set. Some people need the whole chord.
You also have your two friends, and my hope is that this love is lifting them higher also, and we have an audience. So as you are doing things like improvisationally, letting us know that you're speaking to God and telling the infinite source of creation that your love is lifting me higher, you can chime in and say the same thing.
I can.
You can do that.
Raise the trumpet, David.
Tell us something. Or we are here. We are here.
Yes.
So we're coming back to word Hadash. Because you were out in there.
Lord Kadosh, I'll
See you all
Your love is lifting me higher.
Your love is lifting me higher and higher. And I've never been lifted before.
Your love is lifting me higher than I've ever been lifted before.
Say it over and over again.
Your love is lifting me higher than I've ever been lifted before. Your love is lifting me higher than I've ever been lifted before. Your love is lifting me higher than I've ever been lifted before.
Let's bring it back. So then you're going to take us into more of the song.
Your love is lifting me higher than I've ever been lifted before. Your love is lifting me higher than I've ever been lifted before. So keep it up.
Keep it up.
Keep it up. It's my desire. At your side forevermore. So keep it up. Quench my desire. And I'll be at your side forevermore. Now once I was down. Okay. Now once I was downhearted. Disappointment was my closest friend. But you came and I soon started. You never
Take a breath here. We can come off of it. How could we not declare the feeling of unity this time?
Thank you for taking that risk and showing up in that way.
Do you want a moment, Michelle, or would you like to reflect on what changed for you? Your call.
Well, this time I was much more into the prayer, which opened up my mood. So I could feel help more. You know, in the service.
Help
More than, yeah, than, I mean, I felt engaged with everybody during our service this morning. But this time, I felt I was more inside me while being connected with everybody. I felt connected this morning, I did, but I wasn't as deep inside myself. So, and music opens easily in my room. So that's what happened.
Once I was downhearted. Actually, not so infrequently. And there's a story in my family about disappointment. Maybe your families have, or your lives have, that story. Don't ever be too happy. Disappointment lurks, waits around the corner. Once I was downhearted, and disappointment was my closest friend. If I didn't sing those words as a prayer, I mean, that's not a happy song. It goes to a place of healing. Because when I do let that loving creative power of the universe become my companion, at the very least, there's companionship for my unhappinesses. And some measure of comfort. Nahamu, Nahamu. Power that calls out Nahamu, you call out to me. I'm so glad I finally found it. And I pray that as a prayer to the loving power of the universe. It reminds me to seek and be found. All of these wonderful songs that we are inclined to bring into the gathering, if they're only insert songs, and then they show up, we froth a little bit, and then we lay it aside and we're back to Yishtabach Shiva. Then we haven't prayed it yet. You can ask your beloveds here if they'll reflect for them, to be back to you or change for them.
Let's keep it to 3 so that we honor the need for the service.
So something that I wrestle with a lot, particularly here, now, is the place of pathos in the service. There's a lot of upbeat singing that happens in this community, and so during Shakri, I actually just did Tatanu because I needed it. We had just done Sukkot Zimra, and I was feeling very alienated from that. And so I was like, I'm gonna grab Tatanu, and I did it myself, which for me was helpful to then get in. What was different this time is that I found that
Tachanun is?
Tachanun is prayers of supplication. It's the, oh God, this is terrible. I have been crying in my bed and it's floating away. There's so many tears. So this time around, I found that pathos that I needed. That's where my life is right now. In the lyrics, in the place where emotion is just waiting us. So first, thank you for bringing that. The first time around, I felt like I had to sneak in some of that because I needed it, and that worked for me. But now, finding it actually in the service made me feel like I wasn't alone in that pathos, but that there was a place to plug in with the community, with the liturgy, as he brought
Wow. So to go back to the song versus prayer conversation, I'm very, very sensitive to the style. So the first time it was a song, not a song I particularly liked. And this time it was a prayer. And I was like, it was just not even in the same category. It wasn't a song, it was a prayer. And I enjoyed the music and I enjoyed the way you were singing it. And I felt inside of it, I actually felt alienated from it the first time because I didn't especially like the song and it felt like everybody else knew it and I didn't. And it did, it felt like a mismatch in emotional content. And it all somehow came together this time. And so to try and practice what we're trying to learn about teaching this week, what I might tell my co-leaders, my co-hall, what I was trying to teach was you can do just about anything. You can really choose just about anything as long as it's really a prayer. You set it up like a prayer, continue through and finish with a prayer.
Thank you for modeling the feedback that we're looking for this morning. So there needs to be an agreement amongst the community because the 3 has become 9. So before we choose someone else, do we have an agreement to remain for an additional 5 minutes or so? Because I see a lot of longing in hands, but that imposes a new contract on folks. So I just wanted to be in agreement, not just happening to us. And if people need, I would say if people do need to go for whatever reason at this moment for lunch, eating, or great needs, we don't want this to be the S comment section of the program where no one leaves the room for however long.
Perhaps one person really has a summative thought. It's such a big and exquisite conversation, and we will be having it for the rest of our lives together. About how to allow our neshamas to show up, how to risk being real in ways that invite that possibility for one another. We live in a world in which there are endless opportunities to not be real. And that it's required of us constantly in order to function. If prayer is not a safe place to be real, then there's no place left. Yet if we actually offered one another and the people we love a place inside prayer that we can allow our full selves to show up, our synagogues would be empty.
Well, we know we wouldn't wait to prayer just to do that. We'd be doing a whole bunch of other relational groundwork to hold that experience.
Right, it becomes a laboratory in which a capacity that we nurture then begins to show up in all these other places in our lives.
May have been the summary comment.
That was it.
Amen.
Amen. So closing refrain.
I don't know if that was. Wait, yeah.
You might not.
There's a group called Sylvia, have been called upon Sylvia. That's the last comment before.
Thank you. Thank you for noticing that.
What I learned from watching this happen, I love the song. Okay? So I was happy first when you sang it. It was that repetition, phrases. That you move that. All of this. Starting with you. And so that can be not supposed to repeat stuff. And that was a really powerful lesson. And what happens when you repeat something without it, you give it time to move inside. So really impact.
Thank you, Heather. Thank you for your willingness to keep showing up more. See you back here at 2 o'clock. 1:30. 1:30, as.
See you later, Lisa.
See you back here at 1:30.
Thank you so much. That was fabulous. I loved it. I loved it. It was great. Bye. See ya.